Cheyanne, you were leading the kind of question and answer session on the first call. And I mean, we can say it now because it went quite well, but we prepared like 15 minutes before. It was really up in the air how the format was going to work, a bit like this podcast. Yeah, just take it away. I understand you're a specialist in sustainability and you've had loads of experience in that. Um, how do you think, how relevant were the topics that were discussed?
I think, well, we covered a lot of topics in the session. I think we kind of came in with the mindset of it being an open dialogue. People could bring questions to the table or challenges that they were facing. So sustainability was a piece that came up in the conversation for sure. But I think that there was definitely a lot of focus around like AI, some tools and platforms, which is often like a challenge for ops teams to sort of figure out, okay, what's the best way of utilizing all of these like new systems and tools that are out there, especially with the AI boom. So that was definitely a big part of the conversation. But that also ties into the sustainability lens as well. Now that we have a deeper understanding of the impact that some of these platforms have environmentally, and for any type of business that is looking to, measure their carbon footprint or have a social or sustainable impact, it's things that we have to consider as ops professionals.
Yeah, and there was a point, I can't remember who brought it up, but there was a point on sustainability. I never thought about it from this perspective, but it was the ethics of sustainability. And I think there was one agency, the office manager mentioned that they have completely negated using AI and kept it to a bare minimum. Well, I think they even said they don't use it at all. What was your perspective, or what did you think of that?
Yeah, I think that was one of the, for me at least, one of the most interesting takeaways from the session, because I find it quite refreshing, but also just interesting to hear of businesses and leadership teams that are taking quite almost a radical approach to AI, especially, it's really common in, startup world, agency world, this notion of like, okay, if we want to remain competitive and adaptable, we have to like embrace AI 110%. And I'm not saying I agree with either side of the spectrum, but I do think it's like an interesting conversation starter to see that actually there are agencies and creative businesses that are refusing to use AI tools at all because of the ethical impact, which we talked a lot about how there is still like human bias embedded in these platforms, and the results that they generate aren't necessarily going to be an accurate representation of the cultures or communities that we're plugging into these systems. But then also, the environmental impact as well. So I think that is like a really interesting dialogue that we should be having a lot more of.
Platforms, but it sprung another question into my mind. I mean, we talk about sustainability, for example, like getting a B Corp status. It's not economically viable for a lot of companies traditionally, but there's more of a trend of agencies moving towards that direction. Is that something you see agencies looking at going forward, like not so focusing on the economic side, but more on the environmental aspect of it?
So I think it's also important to clarify like what B Corp is as well, because it isn't just a sustainability or environmental impact accreditation. It's covering several different impact areas, from social impact, community, operationally, and then environmental as well. So in order to kind of align with a B Corp badge and be a purpose-led organization, there's quite a few different areas that a business would need to look at. But to your point, yes, I have actually seen and spoken to some agencies and founders like recently who haven't gone down the path yet of going through the B Corp application process. It's quite rigorous, it's quite time extensive, but they're already looking at the criteria and just culturally embedding that way of structuring their business like to align with that. Because the reality is B Corp, the way it's trying to kind of like make impact in the world is by getting as many people bought in on what it means to be a B Corp. It doesn't matter necessarily right at this particular stage of your business if you have a B Corp certification or not. But I would encourage any agency who is future think positive and thinking ahead, and also has an ethical backbone to look at what those standards are and just see where you're able to mirror that in your organization. And so, yeah.
No, it totally does. I mean, I thought it was just related to environmental aspects. Clearly, I just learned something new right now. So thanks for that. And that kind of leads me on to another point that was mentioned. I don't know if you remember, there was a bit of an awkward silence when this was mentioned, but someone in the anonymous questions section posted something related to senior leadership being on board with certain processes. How do you convince senior leadership to kind of get on board with processes or implementing new tools or AI or even sustainability across the board?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I don't know if this is a broad brush, but I feel like it's quite a universal challenge that operations professionals face within, especially agencies, but probably in other businesses as well, is getting that senior leadership buy-in when there's new processes or implementing, things like IT support or these other tools that are ultimately there to help the business like thrive and run more efficiently and all of these things. But it might just not be top of mind for a senior leadership's priorities, like on any given day. They're probably dealing with a lot of, higher thinking, like putting out fires, that type of thing. So I guess what came through for me in the conversation around this challenge, which, yes, there was like a bit of an awkward pause because, it can feel a little bit personal, and like we don't want to talk poorly about the companies that we are associated with. But some of the things that I pulled out of the conversation were timing, so pacing how we deliver and implement new systems or processes, not overloading. So launching like 5 different optimizations in 1 week and expecting everyone to understand it and be bought in. But also, I think for me, it's like looking at the ways we articulate these changes to senior leadership. So what are their goals? What are their priorities? And aligning your communication with that.
Yeah, I guess that kind of links to the culture of the company as well, doesn't it? You have to kind of understand the MD or the founder's thinking when implementing something. So I have a lot of conversations with people, and we talk about IT support. And when it comes up in conversation, they're like, oh, the MD would really like this, or I don't think the MD would be on board with that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, they have to qualify it through the MD. I guess it's the same with other aspects of operations. They have to go through the MD to get approval for any system change they make. And it's and you said it's important to kind of adjust how you bring that across. Is that like, do you create a report based on who you're speaking to? Do you look at disc profiling, for example? MDs tend to be a bit more direct, founders be a bit more direct. Is that kind of what you're speaking
I mean,
about?
yeah, I think it's understanding like what are the current like goals of the business, aligning that to those goals, like having that conversation. But senior leaders are often very time poor. So to your point, like getting the data, being as succinct as possible, and showcasing like how this new implementation like targets these particular areas of focus and for the senior team.
The breakout rooms was something that I really wanted to see if they would work in a positive way. I mean, how did you find those when you were put in the room?
No, I think it's great, especially for like the nature of the intention behind this type of like virtual gathering. There's only so much you can cover in like the initial introductions that people share about their role, their agency, and so on. And I think that having the breakout groups is like a really great way to like build those deeper connections, but also have people share a bit more about their experience, their expertise, but also their challenges, and even, within that time, like we started having a conversation about problem solving, and getting that one-to-one support can feel like a bit of like a safer space as well
Yeah.
than sharing a current challenge you're facing with a group of 10, 20 people on a call. So yeah, I think it's really useful. It kind of helps to build that personal network connection with that individual. And ultimately that was the goal of this session, was to help operations professionals feel a little bit more connected, a bit more supported, and yeah, less solitary.
Yeah, I think that was one of the key themes. A few people when I just called after the call, they were saying it just felt good to have people there that went through similar things, or go through similar things. Almost like a therapy session, isn't it? A group therapy session. Because I think someone mentioned that, devs, there's a whole team, designers, there's a whole team,
Yeah.
and then ops people are just alone.
Yeah.
And someone mentioned it was like they found a peer group. So yeah, I really appreciate some of the feedback I got. Well, Cheyanne, we discussed sustainability quite a lot in the beginning. That's going to be the key focus for the next call.
Mhm.
I mean, how important is that for agencies moving forward?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I mean, a lot of the data that's coming out is showing how essential it is for organizations to take sustainability and environmental impact seriously. If you want to attract top talent, we know that about 80% of millennials consider whether a company's like social and environmental commitments align with them, and it is a deciding factor when it comes to where people want to work. And so in order to like remain, I guess, competitive and sustainably grow, I think it can't be avoided. However, I think we are also in a crisis point in various industries when it comes to greenwashing. There are new greenwashing concerns coming out every day from businesses in all different parts of the world and different industries. And so I'm reluctant to position sustainability as something all agencies need to be doing and thinking about now, because unless they're willing to really take on board like what that means to live and breathe like sustainability commitments, then we are at risk of just further greenwashing, which we just don't need at that in the current climate crisis that we're in. And so I would really encourage agencies to go ahead and look at what those B Corp criteria are across the environmental impact, and see where they're falling short and where they could be doing better. And there are lots of people you can find on LinkedIn in your network, myself, I'm sure there's other people as well, to see where there could be culture change, commitments, measuring tools and strategies to improve their sustainability standards. But yeah, I think it's really about like wanting to live and breathe that. And so I think every agency should think about it, absolutely, and be doing it, but doing it with integrity, I think is going to be the big one for us to actually hopefully see a world that is livable in the future.
Yeah, I think integrity is a key word. It's something that's kind of dying out a bit in the world, but let's hope we can bring it back, one agency at a time.
Yeah.
Like I've had a whole list of challenges people have mentioned, HR and legal, how to use the best tools, company events, onboarding new employees, managing freelancers. There's 10, 12 challenges I can think of on top of my head that people have mentioned. And the plan is to kind of go through the series of sessions, combating one challenge at a time.
Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully you're with us along the journey if you can make time. And
Yeah.
it'd be good to kind of touch base and see what you think in the next one.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Love to. And thanks for, creating this space for ops professionals to connect. I think it's really valuable and needed.
Of course. Thanks, Jan.
Thank you.